Hello, it is time for a writer's workshop. We are going to continue talking about fictional narrative writing today, but we will be talking about the next stage of our writing process, which is revising. So just to review, we know that a narrative is a fictional story. We have to have characters, setting, a problem and solution. Our story has to have a clear beginning, middle, end, and we will be using transition words like first, next, then, and finally to show how the events go in order. In the writing process, we have already done our pre-writing where we generated ideas and we organized them into a graphic organizer. Then we started drafting in complete sentences our introduction, our body, and our concluding paragraphs. Well, now it is time for us to do our revising. And revising is when you reread what you wrote and you figure out how you can make that better. And to help us understand how we can make it better, we are going to use our ARMS. Okay? ARMS is actually an acronym and it stands for add, remove, move, and substitute. So as you're reading what you wrote, I want you to go back when it's time to revise and I want you to ask yourself these questions. What can I add to my narrative? Should I add more sentences that give more description? Maybe I can add more details and more descriptive words in my sentences. Then you also want to ask yourself, is there anything that I need to remove? A lot of the time, students will kind of use the same word over and over and over again. And sometimes it's just a matter of, hey, let's remove and get rid of that word. Or they might include a sentence that isn't really relative and it doesn't really add to their story. And so if it's a sentence that doesn't really add to the story, I say, let's just get rid of it. Let's remove that sentence. Sometimes I notice that the events that they're talking about are not in the correct order. And so if that's the case, maybe we need to just move the sentences around a little bit to make sure that the events are in order. And then finally, the S stands for substitute. And substitute basically means to replace. And so we might want to take some blah, boring words and change it and substitute those for some better wow words. Okay? So rather than that was a good movie, well, let's take that boring word good and change it to say something like that was a fantastic movie. Also, if you keep using the same words over and over again, you might want to think of a synonym for the word. And so that's a word that means the same thing, and you can substitute that word with a synonym. So here is an example of something my student wrote a while ago, and it's a really funny story. But this was the very first draft of their story. And so let's read it and then see if we can figure out what we can do to revise, maybe to add, remove, move, or substitute some of the things in here. It says, the title is, My Teacher Had a Rip in His Pants. Just about a week ago, my teacher had a rip in his pants. It was really funny. I didn't see it right away, but someone told me. Then I saw it and wanted to laugh, but I held it in. Then someone told him and everyone started to laugh. Then he went home to change. Okay, this is okay. But when we went back and we started revising, I said, well, I think there's a lot of things I would like you to add. I had a lot of questions. Like, what day was it? What was the teacher's name? Where was the rip? How did it happen? Who told you there was a rip? Maybe who told the teacher, even more importantly, because I would be kind of afraid. And I asked the student, can you add more details here? And then we said remove. Well, he didn't see it, but the student told me that he wanted to put the end at the end. And I said, oh, yeah, no. In writing from now on, we don't ever say the end. So I said, remove that, get rid of it. Now, there wasn't necessarily anything here that I wanted the student to remove, maybe move some of the words and then kind of substitute some of these words. Because when I saw that he said then, I either said, you know what, let's move some of those out and get rid of them, or move them around, or let's substitute. And rather than saying then, can we think of a better word to use instead? So the author went back and she rewrote this, and this is what she came up with, which is so much better. It's called A Kid's Dream Come True. Every kid has a dream that their teacher will disappear one day. Well, in our case, it finally came true. Mr. Friedman was writing our math homework on the board last Wednesday. The list was getting longer and longer, and finally he bent down to write his last list of problems to do from our math textbook. His pants ripped right in a very embarrassing spot. We all noticed that his pants were getting tighter and tighter over the past few months, but none of us dreamed that they would finally just give up. Everyone started to laugh, and Mr. Freeman turned, glared at us, grabbed at the rib, and darted out of the room. It wasn't long before Mrs. O'Leary came in to finish up the class. She told us all to settle down and get back to work. I think she was trying to hold back a little giggle, but she never talked about what happened. The good news is Mr. Freeman never did come back that afternoon. Oh man, this was so much better, especially because this author went back and she added a lot more details. And she kind of got rid of some things that were repetitive, and she substituted some blah, boring words for some way better words. All right, so your writing assignment today is going to be in a Nearpod assignment, and you are going to review what ARMS stands for. Remember, add, remove, move, and substitute. That's going to help us to revise our writing, and you're going to be doing a little bit of practice activities. Have fun. Let's go be writers.